Welcome back to the Hive Doctor, your beekeeping mentor. It's my job to take the guesswork out of beekeeping for you. And today we're going to be talking about whether you should be performing winter hive inspections or not. This can be a pretty controversial topic, so we're going to cover both bases so that by the end of this video, which is where you also find my opinion, you'll have a really good idea whether you're going to want to do winter inspections or if you're going to want to not do them. So stick around. When it comes to winter hive inspections, you pretty much have two choices: to do them or to not do them. If you don't do winter hive inspections, you really don't have much to think about. You will have set up your hives in the fall to get through winter. You check them again in spring when it's warm enough, and they either made it or they didn't. So the bigger topic is whether you should perform winter hive inspections. Now, I've seen both sides of the coin. One, not doing them because, well, it's too cold to open up a hive. That's the general idea. Two, which I've actually seen the opinion of a popular beekeeping blog, and the author of this blog believes that you should do winter hive inspections, and that if you do not, you're kind of being an irresponsible beekeeper. They even suggest that you should do them even if it's raining, snowing, in 20-degree weather, because they believe that you could possibly save your hive or two, depending on what's going on. So let's talk about what happens if you do perform a winter hive inspection. Well, today, right now, it's about, I don't know, 30, low 30s right here in the shade. You can see my breath. I'm bundled up, I'm cold. And right now, in my hives, and in yours, what you're gonna have is a main hive body. It doesn't matter how many boxes are on top. You will have had a winter setup, and that's what your bees are in. But in one of those boxes, depending on the stage of winter you're in, your bees are going to be primarily in one of these hive bodies, possibly transitioning into a honey super that you left on top of them. If you've got infrared technology, you can see exactly where your colony is and their orientation in the hive, even the size of them, depending on the size of that infrared winter cluster you're going to see through the box here. But without that kind of equipment, we don't know where they are or how big or small the colony is. But let's say today I did a winter hive inspection. I came along. Right now, since we're in the 30s, which is fairly mild for winter time, there's a cluster of honeybees in this box. They're clustered tight, and they're almost in a dormant state, trying to stay warm. They circulate in and out of that winter cluster ball to take turns, because the center is the warmest, of course, the outside, the least amount of warmth. So for an inspection, we would pop either the hive cover off or the entire quilting box I have on top. Now, as soon as I pop that off, what's going to happen is the heat of the hive is going to rise up, and we're going to lose a lot of the heat out of this hive. There's two thoughts with this idea. One is, if this is a good hive, then even though we let all that heat out, we could do a visual inspection of how much stores they have. We could lift the hive to tell the weight, and let's say that it's a good hive. Well, if it is, we didn't need to open it to begin with. They were going to make it, and now we've just kind of got rid of a lot of their body heat, and they're going to have to regather that, and we've disturbed them. And because we disturbed them, they've burned more calories, and because they burn more calories, they're going to have to start eating more of their winter stores than they would have otherwise had we not come along and disturbed them. But let's say the other thing happened. We found out that they did in fact need help. It was a smaller colony. They were low on food stores. Well, now we still let what little warmth they had out of the hive. Now they're going to have to recoup from that, but because they're smaller, it's going to take more of their resources. It's going to be more difficult for a smaller colony to warm up all this space than it would a larger colony. So now what are you going to do? You're going to feed them? Well, it's too cold. They're going to stay in that winter cluster. If they break that cluster to go get the feed, whether it's some kind of on top in-hive feeder, or like my hives, I've got a feeder jar in the back, it's too cold for them to break the winter cluster to go get that feed. And even if they did, can they really get enough in store to where they're going to make it all the way to springtime? Bees are pretty amazing, but I kind of highly doubt that. So if it's not obvious by now, I'm not really a proponent for winter hive inspections. It just doesn't make sense. Let's say you did play the hero and you saved the colony because you saw it was small, and you know that one of these other colonies as large because you've got the infrared technology. You can tell that the hive next door has a huge population. So all you do is pop this quilting box off, pick up the deep hive body, and put it on their hive and join the two colonies, a weaker one to a stronger one. Well, yay, you may have saved a colony. But what if you did something better? What if you did something a little bit more mindful? And that was have a better beekeeping practice in the fall, making sure that you're setting them up for winter when it matters most, when you can still do hive inspections when the weather is warm, when it's safe, when they're not going to be losing that precious body heat, that colony heat that's stored inside of this box. We've all, or at least most of us, have had the experience of going outside in the winter and then coming back into a warm home. We don't get warm immediately. We're still cold, we're shivering. Sometimes it takes a lot, and our feet are even colder for hours to come, and we just can't quite get them warm again. My idea behind winter hive inspections is that you don't need to do them if you're confident in that your bees are going into winter well in the fall, making sure they've got enough feed, enough weight on them. It's not worth the risk, because if your hives are fine in winter, again, you didn't need to check them to begin with. And if they're weak, now they're weaker because you just exposed them to more cold, they had loss of heat, and you disturbed them. So no matter what, winter really, really requires a non-disturbance. A good colony in a good cold winter will have much of its stores remaining near the end of winter time, the beginning of spring. And usually that's around the time when we're gonna have those few days where we might find a warm enough day to go in and then do our first spring hive inspection. That's the time to play hero, and that's the time to get feed on them, emergency feed if they need it, and if nothing's blooming yet. Or if it's too cold or rainy when things are blooming in that early springtime for the bees to get out. Those are the times we need to play beekeeper, not during the winter time. Honeybee colonies have many resources. One of those resources we do not consider a lot or often is their colony warmth. It takes a long time for them to recoup and gather that cluster warmth again after we come along and do a winter disturbance hive inspection. So this is especially going to differentiate depending on how moderate, mild, or severe your winters are in your area. I have a moderate winter area myself here. Rarely do we see a day with 0 degrees, but I still wouldn't open up my hive to check them. Even if I had infrared technology and I found that this colony was dwindling, then it just means I didn't set them up in the fall appropriately for them to get through winter. So that's just another thing for me to make sure I do better in the fall. I'd love to hear what you have to say, how you winter your bees, and your opinion on whether or not you should do a winter hive inspection. So leave any of that in the comments below. Tell your friends about the Hive Doctor, and don't forget to drop me one of these today. I'll see you in the next video.